상우 형, 나 보고 왔어요.
What would it take for you to betray someone you care about? Imagine a situation where every decision could end it all. Surrounded by people, all desperate for the same thing: money and survival. That's the reality of Squid Game. One of the key elements that makes the show so fascinating to begin with is the psychology of desperation, the feeling of being backed into a corner with no way out. Let's talk about how Squid Game uses your own psychology against you. Before the first game even begins, we're introduced to the characters in a way that makes this idea stick. They didn't just stumble into this insane competition by accident. Every single one of them is there because they've hit rock bottom. Every single one of the participants made terrible choices that led them into this place of desperation. Every single one of them chose to be there. Take Ki-hun, for example. He's a gambling addict, drowning in debt, unable to pay back loan sharks who are literally chasing him down. Then there's Sang-woo, once a promising student, now on the run for embezzling money. These characters didn't end up in the game because they were naive. It was because they were desperate, looking to get out of the mess that they created. The game itself wasn't the first choice. They were backed into a corner, and Squid Game seemed like the only option. There's a part of our brains called the amygdala, and it plays a central role in processing fear and stress. In states of desperation, the amygdala becomes hyperactive, amplifying emotional responses and driving survival-oriented behaviors. When the players first realized the true nature of the game, they had a chance to leave. They even voted to leave, but then the majority of them decided to come back anyway. Why would this ever happen? What type of insane person would go back into Squid Game after realizing what it truly was? Desperate people. Because even though they now understand the true cost of their decision, they're still desperate. Desperation can cloud your judgment so much that even if you know the risks, you're still willing to jump into the fire. To provide a real-world example, let's look at the case of the Donner Party, the widely known American pioneers who became stranded in the Sierra Nevada during the harsh winter of 1846. Facing extreme conditions, tensions rose and desperation started to kick in. Lives were already lost on this treacherous journey. The food supply was gone and countless roadblocks presented themselves. This journey turned into a real-life nightmare. Eventually, members of the group resorted to cannibalism to stay alive. They consumed the bodies of the dead to ease their desperation to stay alive. In any normal circumstance, a normal person would be horrified at the idea of consuming another individual. Sprinkle in desperation, and new lines of thinking arise. Desperation impacts our prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and rational thought. This region becomes less effective during extreme stress and desperate situations, leading to irrational decisions. The participants of Squid Game realized that the stakes were higher than they could have ever imagined, but it was the only option they felt they had. They were stuck between two bad choices: stay and risk it all, or leave and face a life that's no better than the one that they've already tried to escape. In the end, they returned because they needed to win. It's not just about money, it's about survival. Our own moral compass can completely start to shift here. In Squid Game, we see this play out in every game. Contestants were constantly pushed to the brink, forced to make life or death decisions. Desperation alters our decision making. This triggers the fight or flight response. So you either fight for survival or you freeze and risk everything. Take the first game, for example. Stop on red, go on green. But what's the twist? If you fail, you die. The high stakes environment kicks desperation into overdrive. As we see, this led to irrational behavior. People start running faster than they normally would, not thinking about the consequences. Desperation pushes them to act without even thinking. Now, desperation doesn't make us just act faster. it severely impacts our judgment. We focus on the short term, ignoring long-term consequences. This is where cognitive biases come into play. We're more likely to take risks, to gamble, even when the odds are stacked against us. Think of the marble game, the moment where Squid Game really hit you in the gut. The characters who have established relationships now have to betray each other to survive. In a normal situation, you wouldn't think twice about helping someone you've bonded with. But here, desperation distorts those moral boundaries. You're not thinking about friendship anymore. You're thinking about how to win, how to stay alive. Gi-hun's decision to deceive the old man shows us how desperation can cloud judgment. Betrayal can hit extremely hard, and in this instance, it's a wonderful reminder that no one is immune to psychology. When we're desperate, people can do terrible things. Squid Game isn't just about survival. It's also about the psychology of manipulation, a game of desperate action. The creators of the game understand this. They know that when people are desperate enough, they'll do anything to survive, even if it means betraying everything they stand for. Power dynamics play an important role here as well. The guards and organizers of the game had all the power. They controlled the situation, and they used desperation as a tool to manipulate the contestants. Even though it was absolute chaos, they did everything they could to make it as fair as possible. By creating a false sense of hope, giving them just enough to survive, they made the players fight harder, all for the chance at a better life. So how exactly does Squid Game use your own psychology against you? It taps into the deepest parts of human nature. The fear of death, the desire to survive, and the lengths we'll go to when we're desperate. It shows us that when we're pushed to our limits, our decision-making becomes less about rationality and more about survival. The hypothalamus releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline during these times, and the anterior cingulate cortex heightens our awareness on the lack of viable options. The reward system in our brains also plays a key role in desperate times, driving risky behaviors when individuals perceive them as the only way to achieve relief or receive a mental reward. And perhaps the most terrifying part of all of this is it really makes us question, what would we do in that situation? Season 2 of Squid Game is finally here, and I wanted to make a video on this while it was fresh in my mind. Let me know in the comments what you think about Season 1 and where you think Season 2 will take things. Will desperation be the key theme here? Let me know what you think is going to happen. If you found this video helpful, any support for the channel would be greatly appreciated. I wanted to give a huge shout out to my biggest channel supporters: Aaron Freneck, Erica, Carolina, Sunny Sue, and Tony Martinez. I seriously can't thank you guys enough for all the support you've given me and the channel, as well as this community. Thank you guys so much. Remember to take care of yourselves. Remember to take care of those around you. And for all things psychology to help you think, feel, and perform better, stay tuned right here on Psychology of Living.